Today is January 26, 1975, and I'm interviewing Rabbi Liao Ginsburg, Ginsburg. First of all, I wanted to know, where and when did you first encounter Jewish survivors of the Holocaust? Were they concentration camp victims or individuals who hid during the war?
Well, they were DPs, displaced persons. We had in Stuttgart about 800 Polish Jews, mainly from Radom. And we also had 200 more in a suburb of Stuttgart. Do not recall the name of it at the moment. And they were all taken care of, rations from the U.S. Army. Does that answer your first question?
Now, with what Army unit were you involved during this period?
Well, I was with being a Jewish chaplain. I had a lot of territory to cover, but I was assigned to one particular place. But I covered so many that I can't give you the name of the.
Well, what was the unit with you?
The unit I was with the Century, the 100th Division.
The 100th Division. Okay, fine. Now, when did you first come into contact with these Jews? What year?
This
was what date?
This was in just after the war ended.
The war ended in May.
Well, following the end of the war, and at that time I was in Bonn. And but I had more experience in the from September of '45 in Stuttgart. As I already outlined, we had roughly about 1,000 DPs, and the vast majority of them were from Poland.
Now, what did they require from you? How were you able to help them?
Well, the problem, of course, is housing. I was able to get for them housing under great difficulties, but I wanted not tents. I wanted houses, and so. Contacting various officials of the Army with great difficulty, I was able to where they were housed, I was able to get some additional houses, and we were able to put them in. The rule being, just like the Jews had to leave behind all their belongings, I insisted that they be thrown out and leave all their belongings behind. And we were able to accommodate them in houses.
Did you work with Rabbi Eskin at all? Or
No, I followed him.
So he had left before September '45?
He left before.
Yes, that's very possible. Yes,
he left before. I mean,
now he had set up the Eskin house for.
This house that he set up belonged to a Jew. I don't think he was living. I'm not too sure, but I don't think he was. And this house was taken over as a Jewish community house. And later on, they named it. He was no longer there when it was named.
No, he was there when it was named. Wasn't it?
Maybe, yes, the name of the Eskin house. This was a Jewish community house where we had services. Outside, of course, the Yamim Naroyim, where we space. The services that I ran one. Emphasized that I can only run one service and everyone is invited, whether they're German Jews or Polish Jews or Army personnel. I can only run one service, and those services were in the Eskin house, except on the Yom Noraim, where we had the opera house, and I got that with very great difficulty. I was opposed. They needed it for rehearsals for some play, whatever it was. But I insisted on Yom Kippur that no one is to go in there for 26 hours. Well, you have to fight all along.
Who did you have to fight with?
Well, those in charge. I mean, I dealt with the army. And the army, they put in that they needed this, that, and the other days for rehearsals. So, and I said, well, I got to have this play. I'm thinking now of Yom Kippur. So I got to have this place for 26 hours, and no one is going to come in. See, this is the setup. Now, a small number of, I suppose it may have been Hasidim, who were not aware that services would be set up for Jews. Now whether they were in the opera house or not, I couldn't tell you. We had approximately about 2,000 people. Now I do recall that on Sukkot, I had a very large sukkah built. I got a detail from the army, all goyim, and then too I had a lot of difficulty because I asked for so much lumber. They said, "Why, there isn't that much lumber in all of Germany." What I wanted was to put up the sukkah, and I wanted a table with benches and required, and a big one at that. I do have a picture. I looked for it. I don't know whether it's here or not. And these Hasidim, I discovered later that they put up a little sukkah for themselves because they didn't know that there would be one. Although there was one, it wasn't so well attended, but it was there on the premises of the Eskin house.
Now, how were you able to help the Jews in other ways? Again,
well, rations.
Aside from in the rations, okay, fine.
The rations were drawn from the army. Unfortunately, some of the Jews sold their rations on the black market, and I had to step in, had a lot of trouble. And the army said, well, if they sell it on the black market, they should, they're getting too much. They want to reduce it. Well, so I had to fight that it should not be reduced, and my argument was I couldn't deny the fact that they did sell it on the black market, but my excuse was that the winter was coming and they needed clothes, and they had to take this, whatever they sold, they had to buy clothes. And that was my excuse. I have to defend them. Of course, we had a lot of trouble with our DPs when the Germans had to leave in these houses. They had to leave their, say, radios, whatever they had. So some of the DPs went in there and they carried them off. Well, so I have to come along and try to defend them. We had a couple from UNRWA, Dutch Jews, very lovely people, and a lot of I don't know how to call their names. I mean, I didn't have much to do with them, I know, but they represented UNRWA, and the problem was that these DPs got into a lot of trouble. Well, they steal a motorcycle and steal. I know they would take the gas out of my Jeep. But they were very reckless. About a 20-year-old DP, he steals a motorcycle and he doesn't know how to run it, and takes a girl, a Jewish girl, and she fell off, and she was dead because of the speed, I guess. And I officiated at the funeral, and her sisters were there, those that did survive. And she was buried in the Jewish cemetery in Stuttgart, and no one shed a tear because it was an achievement to have an individual grave. It's terrible. But that to them was the best thing you could possibly offer. Of course, it's very sad, a 20-year-old girl, and
they were used to that.
And, well, it was better than what they had before. Well, I had my hands full in many ways, especially with these DPs. I allowed the JDC to use there were no phones. I allowed them to use what the Army set up.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's it.
So aside from rations and helping them, rations
were drawn from the Army.
Did you have to give them any addition to that?
What do you mean by addition?
Well, generally the rations were not enough, or weren't they at that time enough?
Well, they were adequate, on...
You didn't have to give them any other way.
Calories, I don't recall the exact number.
About 2,000, yeah.
But the problem was other Polish Jews came in. And we couldn't get an increase because they didn't belong there. Mm-hmm. So that was the problem. How are we going to solve that
and
situation?
How did we solve it?
Well, we solved it. I solved it not so much with the rations, but with the housing.
Mm-hmm. I see.
It was solved. I said these people are crowded, too many people in one room, and it's not humanly possible. But as far as rations were concerned, they had a number. See, I could say, well, there are too many people in one room. But I couldn't admit the fact that they were some people that came in later. So
now,
that's I got 19 Sifrei Torah, which were not all kosher, but I left it from various goyim, Germans, which I left all of it in Stuttgart, and I told them to get out, but they didn't listen, and they rebuilt the synagogue at the expense of the government. There is a synagogue there in Stuttgart, and I got there some silver and gold, a breastplate, tzitz, rimonim. I left it all with them, and I even sent them a electric menorah from New York. Which, of course, I pleaded with them they should get the devil out of there. But, people have a right to make their own decisions. All right.
Now, were you involved in getting packages in the United States and distributing them to survivors?
Whatever I did get, but what I got was for my own congregation.
Did you initiate
in New
that?
York, yes, in New York.
How did that happen? In other words,
well, I wrote my congregation. I need shoes. I need clothing. And so it was forthcoming, not on a big scale because I appealed to my own congregation.
You didn't ask Jewish GIs to...
Well, we got some Jewish GIs, they got packages.
No, but you didn't ask them to have...
Well, their packages they received from home, they were willing to share.
Yeah, but you didn't ask them to write home and also ask specifically for packages?
This question, in all honesty, I do not recall.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to make a statement unless I'm positive.
Okay. In any event, packages did come from your congregation.
For my congregation,
supplement the rations.
I got clothing, primarily I got clothing.
Mm-hmm.
After I got out of the Army, and I left there behind a very fine Jewish boy, he finally settled in Israel. And he got married and went to Israel. and he wrote me that he needs children's shoes. And I was out of the army, but still I sent the shoes through the main post office in New York. So they would not take packages beyond a certain weight or size, which I do not recall. And so I got a hold of a Jewish man who worked in the post office, and we worked to send it at intervals. Though they were primarily shoes for children, because that is what they asked for.
Fine. Now, what was the American Army's reaction to your activities on behalf of the European Jewry? In other words, you must have spent additional time, or time that you would have usually taken for the soldiers.
Well, there was no objection as far as that goes. I didn't find anyone to come along and say, "Oh well, you're not sent here for this purpose." They didn't cooperate, but they certainly did not hinder in any way.
Who didn't cooperate with you? Who were the
I'm
people?
meaning by cooperate, I'm speaking now of the Army.
Right, I know, with regards to the DPs. Now, who in particular are we talking about when we say you didn't get cooperation from?
From the Army.
Who? Who was the Army at that point? General?
No, I didn't deal with generals. No.
Who are you dealing with? Captains?
I'm in the lower echelons. Whoever I don't know their names now.
Okay.
They were all goyim, and they were not responsive. This is what I mean.
Right.
They did not hinder me, but they were not responsive. When I said to this goy some goy there from the south, I said, well, the people are crowded. I mean, it's impossible to keep so many people in one room. He said, well, there's a housing shortage in Germany.
So
there's no feeling.
So in other words, you had to go over their head?
So I went over his head. What do you think?
And they were responsive to that?
Well, you had to do a lot of hollering, and finally I did succeed in getting what I wanted. I didn't get everything, but I got a couple of houses, and they were good houses, I mean, they're all furnished.
But in other words, you had to initiate it, and you had to follow it through, and
that's right. I was the one to do it.
Now, with regard to the JDC, you mentioned the fact that you let them use the phone so that they could communicate with their main office.
So on. Yeah.
Fine.
They didn't have.
Who are the JDC people who were working with you? Do you remember?
No. I didn't have direct dealings with the JDC. They came to me and said, we can't get a phone, and we have no quarters. So I said, well, I tell you, you can use my quarters, and you can use my phone. They're Army phones. That's all. I can't, beyond that, I do not recall anymore. That's what they asked for, and that's what they received.
But in other words, you weren't working side by side with them, you weren't discussing questions of problems or anything
I
like
don't
that?
recall that at all. No, if I did, I would remember something. I know they asked specifically for quarters and the phone. That was the big item.
So you worked independently of the JDC?
Yeah.
Did you work at the Jewish Agency? Or
no, I did not.
What about UNRWA?
UNRWA I did. With the UNRWA we had, as I indicated before, we had this young couple, married couple, who were Dutch Jews. And they had a lot of difficulties from the Army. For example, let me be a little more specific. The Army, I found out that the Army was going to raid the DP quarters.
When was this?
45. It's been a fall of 45.
Okay.
They're going to raid at midnight,
Mm-hmm.
when they least expected, because they stole. I do not remember what they stole. Whatever they did, it's true. They did steal. And the one who arranged it with the Army happened to be a Jew from somewhere out west. And when I found out, I went over to him and I said, now look here, I said, these people have suffered so much. You have to add to their troubles. It's bad enough they survived. Well, I got to teach them a lesson. I said, you don't have to, they got more than a lesson, and you don't have to teach them anything. And I remember that it took me a long time before I finally had him call the army off, call that raid off, because they were it was already set to have a raid at midnight on the DP quarters. And I finally succeeded, but again, I was dealing with a Jew, but there's no feeling, you know. He says, well, they stole, they should be punished. I said, that's not your job to punish them. I couldn't deny the fact that they did steal. I knew that for a fact. But it was finally called off under extreme difficulty. I remember I spoke so much that I was hoarse already talking to that, well, I want to say louse. That's off the record.
Okay. Now, were you involved in Aliyah Beth in any way?
No, this I did not.
What other Jewish organizations were you involved with during this period?
No, I worked independently. I mean, whatever I could do, I did, and whatever I couldn't, well, that's it. You see, now, for example, I mean, the Gefangene der Hoffnung is here. Well, I want to bring a little hope, courage.
Yes,
Asirei HaTikva.
Yeah.
That's what it is from Zechariah Hanavi. So I wanted it in Yiddish, but I couldn't get the type. So and here too, it didn't go so smooth because that Nazi that did it was not anxious to do it.
Well, perhaps for the record, we should be more specific about exactly what this is and how did it come about, etc.
As I indicated, I wanted to bring some courage and hope to the DPs. We had approximately 800 and 200 of them. As I said before, the vast number were Polish Jews, and primarily from Radom. And we can't reach not all of them went to synagogue services, and I wanted to go beyond, so I said, well, let me put out a pamphlet with some hope, courage. And since I couldn't get the Yiddish type, they all knew how to read German as a whole. So I says, well, let's put it out in German, which I did, and this is it. And
who paid for it?
Who paid for it? I think I did.
You had, from what? From the JWB funds?
Probably. I can't answer the question at this point. I wasn't worried about the payment. I knew a DP came to me and he said, "Ich will das verkaufen für euch." I says, "Ich verkauf nicht." I wanted it a free distribution, and it was not sold. It was distributed free. Well, you read it over, you see it. It brought I think it did some good, and I was ready to put out a second one when I got orders to hand over the melucha to another chaplain.
Who's the other chaplain?
Dembowitz. Did you see?
Yeah, sure. Dembowitz. So it was Eskin, and then you, and then Rabbi Dembowitz.
Yeah. Well, I handed over. I did quite a bit of work with the cemeteries that they should get the monuments fixed, replaced. I did quite a bit on that too. All primarily in Stuttgart. I mean, that was really the place where I operated from.
Did you ever collect guns, ammunition, or money to be sent to Palestine?
No.
Were you involved with working with other Jewish chaplains in any way? The Jewish refugee problem?
Well, yes, we were all involved, but not as far as ammunition goes, no. I mean, whatever could, now let's be more specific. A Jew came to me, I still remember, I don't know his name, but he came from Bialystok, and he says, "Thou fallen in Eretz Yisrael, thou from Dalam." And you know the rule was that you had to, all the U.S. currency had to be converted into military marks. But I really had Rahmanis on him. He told me a story that his father had a pair of new boots made, and a Polak came along, and a Jew with new boots. He killed him to take his boots. And he says, the only place for a Jew is in Eretz Yisrael. You're going, it's out. All right. Well, I did get him some money. I don't recall how I got it, but I didn't get much. Whatever I was able to do, I mean, I either found Eretz Yisrael, you got to help him. Now, of course, that's no organization, it's an individual work.
Right.
It's nothing to do with anyone else. For example, if I took a Jewish woman, she lived somewhere in Germany, and she couldn't get there. Well, I wasn't supposed to take her because there was no fraternization. Nevertheless, I did take her, and I was held up for a permit, which I didn't have. Well, I finally got away with it. Happened to be a Jewish boy, and my driver knew him. So, but this is all individual.
Right.
Work.
Well,
whatever I got, I got the last Sefer Torah, which was kosher. Not all were, but some were really banged up. From a Catholic woman who didn't want to give it, and what happened was she had in her home, in hiding, evidently it must have been a rabbi, and she told me he only ate tea and bread. He evidently didn't come back. This Sefer Torah was wrapped in a big piece of tapestry, and he gave her a Tanakh, or the German translation. This he gave her for keeps, but not the Sefer Torah. And she didn't want to give that Sefer Torah up. Well, she needed a pair of shoes. I said, well, I'll get you the shoes, but I want the Torah. Well, I tried to get her the shoes, but I did not succeed. I really tried, because I said I will try to get it, but I didn't succeed. And she was peeved about it. It didn't belong to her, but I tried to keep my word, but look, I mean, what I cannot do, it's not within my control. So she was ripping mad when I took the Sefer Torah, so she gives me the Tanakh, take this too. Well, I worked as an individual. Of course, my helper was a very fine Jewish boy, with a Jewish heart, and whatever I was able to do was really through him. And Eskin had the same one, Rosenberg. I don't know his first name. He's in Israel now. I don't know where.
Oh, that's right. Alexander? No, it's not Alexander.
Pardon?
No. Okay, fine.
No, Alexander Rosenberg.
Somebody else. Yes. No.
He's a rabbi. No.
No, but I thought this.
I can't think of
was
his first
Rosenberg
name.
also.
No, I can't think of his first name. Very fine Jewish chap. He left for Israel after he got out of the army, and I think he was married here or there. I'm sorry I lost track of him. If someday maybe I'll be able to trace. I would like to know where he is.
Let me